Welcome to the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare, the podcast for busy healthcare leaders who are ready to get out of survival mode so they can focus on what matters most. This is where the burnout stops and the real talk starts. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Carter, and each week I sit down with healthcare innovators who get it. We will unpack the chaos, laugh through the hard stuff, and get you at least 2 practical tips you can use at work right away. If you're ready to clear the chaos and lead with impact, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare, the podcast for busy healthcare leaders who are done with overwhelming workloads and burnout. This podcast is built around the big idea that you are not meant to prove your worth through exhaustion. We help you get out of survival mode by discussing your real-world pain points and giving you at least 2 practical tips you can put in place right away. Today's guest is a dear friend named Caroline Pennington, and I met Caroline through a mutual friend while I was looking for someone to help me with my LinkedIn platform growth. So I realized over a year ago that if I wanted to connect with other healthcare leaders around the country, I needed to embrace LinkedIn as a platform and strategy. After spending time being coached by Caroline, I implemented all of her strategies. And I have to tell you guys, it radically changed my professional networking. It has opened up so many incredible opportunities. So if you haven't been intentionally growing your LinkedIn impact healthcare leaders, you are missing the opportunity to future-proof your career through rifts and unexpected pivots that we all face at some point. Caroline helped me grow from just 500 followers to over 8,000 in 1 year, and it keeps growing. So I've had numerous speaking, workshop, and high-level connection opportunities, all thanks to her strategies. She has a deep understanding of the importance of creating a strong professional brand online. And that's crucial for today's busiest healthcare leaders who might want to create some career flexibility moving forward. Caroline is a digital marketing and professional branding expert who helps female founders start, scale, and grow their businesses. She is the host of the Feminine Founder podcast. Make sure you listen to that. It's amazing. She also launched the Feminine Founder Marketing Agency, which is going off like gangbusters, I think, because she's absolutely incredible. She is one of the most empowering and supportive entrepreneurs I've had the honor of meeting. And I'm so excited for you to hear from her today. So welcome to the show, Caroline.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So let's start with how you pivoted, because you used to be a healthcare leader recruitment expert. So how did you pivot from that path and then decide to become an innovator and entrepreneur?
Yeah, so little background on me. If you're listening to this and you're in healthcare, whether or not you're in administration or on the clinical side, I used to be a headhunter, a recruiter, and I recruited at the highest level of the C-suite. I recruited at all levels through my career. But the reality is whether or not you work for a corporate hospital or a private practice, the recruiters that can find you your next job, they're hanging out on LinkedIn. So you want to make sure you have an executive presence, a professional presence, and you are the one getting those messages for the next job opportunities rather than you having to do all the outbound support or outbound applying to jobs. Like, you can actually pivot and create a LinkedIn profile that's magnetic that will attract opportunities to you.
Tell us about pivoting from that specific role and choosing to go out on your own and start your own marketing business.
Yeah, so I spent the past 15 years in the recruiting, the headhunting space. And 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to start my personal branding journey. I did that while I was in a corporate job. So it was very visible, very scary, but I decided to do it anyways. And I decided to start posting on LinkedIn 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And is what happened is literally everything exploded. At the time, I wanted to be the go-to recruiter and headhunter in the C-suite space. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, well, I'm going through a pivot or making changes or whatever, that's okay. I've literally pivoted 3 times and it's not a big deal. And after a year of doing that, my personal brand completely blew up and I decided to go into coaching and then now marketing, supporting female entrepreneurs because there's so much power and visibility on LinkedIn. When I was a recruiter, my last couple of years as a recruiter, when I was working in the C-suite space, I was recruiting the high 6, 7, and 8 figure income earners. And where were those people hanging out? They were hanging out on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing all the different social media platforms we have to choose from. And so some people ask me, well, why aren't you promoting your business on Instagram or X or, wherever else? And it's because my target client, my peer group, my entire profession is primarily on LinkedIn. So I think that's important for people to remember when they're considering that. Tell us about, because we're the chaos whispers on this podcast. So maybe tell us about your most chaotic moment in leadership.
Ooh, I've had plenty.
Yeah. Hard for people to pick just one.
Yeah, and I used to work, I mean, as a headhunter recruiter, it sounded great, like, at cocktail parties that I was placing people in these big jobs and everything, but, like, the reality is that you deal with a person, and that person has emotions and a spouse or partner and children most likely and relocations, and it's like a whole thing. So I would just say in general, working with people and figuring out how to do that and do it in a way that you can get your job done and be professional has been something been a work in progress
Yeah.
throughout my professional journey.
Yeah, I love that. I can't imagine. Yeah, and there's nothing more important. And we learn this. This is true of any industry, but in healthcare leadership, you don't mess with two things: people's pay or their schedule. You always, so anytime you're dealing with someone's pay, their job opportunities, that's extremely high stakes because you're right, it is their whole life. And so that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Let's maybe talk a bit more about professional branding. So I think it's important to acknowledge that most healthcare leaders probably haven't spent time thinking about their professional brand because they might not believe it applies to them, right? It's a common misconception. They might view that term as something that's reserved for marketing a business. But I often remind my peers that we all carry a professional or leadership brand individually, whether we realize it or not. And people view us in a specific light based on how we've interacted with them, how we've solved problems, how we faced adversity. We call it our reputation, but it's also our brand. So when Caroline did you first realize the importance of professional branding, and did you struggle to define yours in the beginning?
Yeah, so the reality is it's 2025 and we're all online. And I don't care what platform you're on, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, like everyone is online. And so when people meet you at a cocktail party or in a job interview or whatever, they're going to go online and do their due diligence for you. And you want to make sure you have a personal brand. Every single person should have a personal brand. Okay. I don't care if you have your own company and you're an entrepreneur or if you work in corporate, you need a personal brand because, as mentioned, I was a recruiter, a headhunter. I know what those people are looking for on the LinkedIn profiles. And you want to have an optimized profile because, yes, you've been in leadership, you've done some really cool things, but like, unless I see that online when I go log on your profile, I don't know those things. So you have to brand yourself and position yourself so that you don't leave people guessing that it's already out there.
Right.
I think it's so important because your online reputation and how people perceive you online is first impressions.
Yeah.
And it's just the same as like getting to the interview on time, following up afterwards, like executing and delivering it. Like those things are just as important. I'll say this too. And this is the first time I'm going on the mic and saying this. I would not contact people on LinkedIn for jobs I was working on if their LinkedIn profile was a hot mess express.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, because it looks like they didn't invest the time or energy to even define who they are or what they're about. And it's not very informative. So it's a waste of time from a recruiter standpoint. That's great. That makes so much sense. It's funny because I have had a LinkedIn account for 14 years. So I've been on since 2011, but I never spent much time or energy on it. I very much healthcare leader. I thought I didn't need it. I didn't worry about it until I started my own business. And at that time, as you well know, I only had 500 followers. I had never considered professional branding or content strategy because I assumed I would never need it. And I was so wrong. And if I could go back in time, I would have been steadily growing my LinkedIn network long before I needed to make a career change. So let's talk about the power of LinkedIn. How big is this platform, Caroline, and why should it matter to these busy healthcare leaders?
So here's some important stats for your listeners that really you need to listen up to this. Number one, LinkedIn has 1 billion with a B users. It crossed 1 billion users last year. Number two, the amount of people posting is now at 3%. When I first started this journey 2 years ago, it was 1%. So what that means is people are catching on. They're starting to realize the importance of marketing on LinkedIn. Marketing on other platforms like Instagram and Facebook is so competitive. Like, you have to keep up with the reels, you gotta do trending audio, you gotta dance on the internet. Like, you don't have to do any of that on LinkedIn at all. LinkedIn is what Facebook and Instagram used to be 20 years ago. And here's one thing too for your listeners is the average user makes over $100,000, which means they have the money to spend with you on your products or services. And again, when I was a recruiter, I was recruiting the really high income earners. Those people are hanging out on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a massive networking opportunity. So, listener, I want you to hear me loud and clear. I know you are a busy, exhausted healthcare leader. I know this. And none of us are career proofed. None of us have any guarantees. So, what Caroline's trying to point home for you is this is the platform for you and to start being intentional now instead of waiting like I did. So, Caroline, we know LinkedIn's algorithm, it also changes frequently. It feels like it's weekly. And it seems that right now, adding meaningful comments to other people's posts is the primary growth factor for engagement and visibility. So, how can busy healthcare leaders engage on the platform without burning themselves out?
If you're interested in starting your LinkedIn journey, commenting is where it's at. And here's why, because once you comment on someone's content, you cross pollinate. So your audience sees it and their audience sees it. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have an audience on LinkedIn, that's okay. You can start. Now everyone is in creator mode. And so that's shifted the model of LinkedIn of connections versus followers. And so everyone is on the same page there. You want to start, don't sit there and like comment all day, but like do 3 to 5 a day if you can. And like if you're at the red light coming home from the gym or like doing laundry folding, like you have time to do 2 or 3 comments.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I've noticed as I've increased my commenting daily, it's really expanding my engagement. So that I can attest that's real, very, very true. And if any of these listeners wanted to, like you said, start growing their presence and their reach on LinkedIn, what are the first 3 steps you would recommend?
So there's 3 things you need to do to set yourself up for success on LinkedIn. Number one, you want to optimize your profile. That's going to take you the most time to do. So that means have a professional picture uploaded, a banner. Like, who are you as a professional? Have the about section filled out, the experience section filled out. That's going to take you some time to do, but once you have it optimized, you're good to go. So have a profile optimized. 2, start engaging with other people. 3, start putting content out there. For me, blowing up my account I went from 0 to 7,000 and I'm now close to 13,000 in right around 2 years. You was 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. If 5 days a week seems like too much for you, start with 1 day a week. Show up on Monday. People are interested in learning on Monday. They're more engaged on Monday. 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would use polls. I use polls all the time, talk to my audience. People, even if they don't engage with your stuff, they will vote in a poll. And so that way you can see what people are interested in doing. And if you're listening to this podcast, when I started this journey doing content, I literally was so cringe. Like, did not get any engagement, like nothing. And everyone was watching me, like the CEO of the company I work for, like my boss, like my coworkers, everyone was watching. But once some stuff started working, I just doubled down and started doing content like that. And it's a process, just like anything else. Like, it's like a snowball, it will build. But once you get going, it'll go fast. So give yourself 3 months, at least 3 months, preferably 6 months to start growing your LinkedIn account.
And I will say grace all around too. I love that you shared the content because for the listeners, most of us aren't natural content creators, right? We can run a code blue with our hands tied behind our back, blindfolded. We can save lives. We can run multi-million dollar, service lines, but content creation, at least for me, felt very intimidating. So if you're listening to this going, okay, that sounds like a lot of work. I promise you, you can make it so much easier. You can use AI to help you generate ideas. Once you figure out what your brand is it what are your values? Is it respect, integrity, compassion, whatever that is, AI can help you generate some content ideas. And then remember, you just want to post very short bits of content, whether it's video or you're adding, photos to your text. People are not reading dissertations. If it's more than 200 words, the likelihood of someone staying on that post and reading it is next to zero. So that takes the pressure off for me, at least as a content creator, is they just want short and sweet. They want a mix of authenticity. Tell me about who you are as a person outside of work. They want, if there's a hot topic going on in our industry, like we talk about mandatory staffing ratios, or if they're, remember the big beautiful bill when that was happening, post about it, add your comments, add your take on it. You can even attach and cite your articles. You can only spend so much time at work and on LinkedIn. You can divide your time in a really smart, intelligent, intentional way. So if you have any issues or you're interested in that, Caroline is a go-to expert, and I'm always happy to help support you guys as well.
Yeah, I was going to add to that too. So people on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, they're being entertained. People on LinkedIn, they want to learn. So whatever you're an expert in, start talking about thought leadership. And even if you think this sounds dumb or silly or is something that maybe you consider mundane, most other people don't think that. So just still post about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Since we are all about working smarter, not harder here on this podcast, Caroline, are there any other Chaos Whisper LinkedIn tips you might want to share?
Schedule your content. That will make your life so much easier. Once I started doing that, there's nothing worse than looking at your screen, your computer, or your telephone and like sitting there thinking like, okay, I have to post today, but I don't know what I'm going to say. So whenever you're feeling creative, maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's an hour, just put your content and what you're going to say in a Microsoft Word document and then schedule it out on your LinkedIn profile. So that way, when you're at work or maybe you got kids to drop off or a sick parent or whatever, life fill in the blank, you're not pressured to have to post content. It's already scheduled out there for you.
Yeah. So my habit for the listeners is every Thursday I generate my content for the upcoming week or two. And then when she says schedule it, there's a little clock icon at the bottom right when you're creating your content, you're creating a post on LinkedIn. And so I schedule it to release daily for the next week or two. So all I'm doing the following week is just reacting to people's content, commenting, or I'm responding to people on my content. I spend about an hour or two on Thursday mornings creating content, and then I schedule it out. So I'm not in there every day trying to come up with something new. So that's a brilliant insider tip. Thanks for sharing that, Caroline. So we know strategy and intention are so important, and work is one part of our lives, but it's not our whole life. We're also human beings with a need to find levity and joy in our lives. So, where are you, Caroline, going to get laughter in your life right now?
Well, I have a podcast and I have two wine runners named Zena and Zara, and I call them my podcast managers. And literally, like out in the wild at the gym, people ask me about my podcast managers.
I love it. I love it.
The vet, they like know that the two podcast managers are like internet famous. And so they like treat them so
That
funny.
is hysterical. And I've seen pictures of them, y'all. Her podcast managers are pretty amazing. So if you've not seen them, you need to come check them out. So cute. And dogs are hysterical. They do the dumbest things. Cats have pride and egos. Dogs do not care. There is no sense of responsibility with their body movements or their choices. So I'm sure it gets chaotic and hilarious at your house. That is so great. I love that. Awesome. Well, if our listeners want to connect with you further, if they're interested in really starting their LinkedIn journey, where can they find you, Caroline?
You can find me on LinkedIn or you can find me on my website, which is femininefounder.com. And if you send me a DM, it's going to be me. I'll answer it.
Yeah, love it. She really does, you guys. Even with the volume she has coming in, she will make time for that. So, Caroline, thank you again for taking the time to share your brilliant strategies with us today. I know I will be forever grateful for all that you've taught me and the amazing leaders you've connected me with. I could never repay that. So, each of Caroline's strategies and tips are going to be found in the show notes, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, Chaos Whispers, we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us on the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare. If today's episode resonated with you, please be sure to follow this podcast, rate, and leave a review on your favorite platform. I'm Dr. Megan Carter, and I will be back next week with more real talk, fresh strategies, and guests who are redefining what it means to lead with impact. Want to keep the conversation going? Be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and download free tools and resources from my website. Both links are in the show notes. Let's heal this broken healthcare system together, one day at a time.